Hi there, my name's Sarah, and in this video I'm going to show you 3 ways to create some fun animated effects to add a little magic to your art in Clip Studio Paint. I'll go over creating lightning, fire, and sparkle effects. If you need a primer on animating in Clip Studio Paint, check out my animation overview tutorial. If you're not sure how to set up animation on an existing piece of art, I've got a tutorial for that too. Links up above and in the video description. Let's start with animating some lightning a frame at a time. This is one of my illustrations featuring a centaur wielding the power of lightning. Here, I've removed the effects layer and flattened the rest. I'll create a new timeline with a frame rate of 6 and a playback time of 6 frames. First, I'll create a layer above my artwork where I'll draw some guides. Setting it to a draft layer means it'll never get exported with the animation, even if I forget to hide it later. Under the Figure tool, I'll choose the Ellipse subtool with these settings and change the color to white. I'll use it to draw a circle around each hand. I'll also drop the layer opacity to 25% so it doesn't get in the way. I'll zoom in on the timeline so I can see what I'm doing, and then add an animation folder. Next, I create a cell on the first frame. Now I'm ready to draw in my electricity. Under the Pen tool, I'll choose the G-Pen subtool with a small brush size, still in white. The way I like to draw electricity is with straight lines and random angles, jutting in and out of my circle guide. Smaller forks will branch off and gradually taper until they disappear. Then I create a second frame and do it all again. Because lightning is so chaotic, I don't want to look at the previous frame, just draw a new pattern each time following the guideline. I'll get to sequential animation in the next section. I'll go ahead and repeat this in the remaining frames. To finish off the effect, I'll create a second animation folder underneath, go to frame 1, and add a cell. Switch over to the Soft Airbrush tool, make the brush size large enough to cover the hand, and select a very light blue color. Paint in a soft glow effect around the hand. Now I want to change my layer's blend mode to Add Glow. But wait, nothing happened. This is because the blend mode of animation folders are set to normal by default. You can either change the folder's blend mode to through to show the effect, or simply leave each layer on normal and change the whole folder to add glow instead. I'll quickly paint in my glows and some reflected light on the centaur's body. Again, I'm keeping this very loose and random. Now when I zoom out, hide the guide layer, and hit play, we've got a pretty neat electricity animation. Animating motion in a sequence is a little more complex, but the onion skin feature is there to help. Now let's play with fire. In this illustration, I demonstrate why young dragons might need non-flammable toys. Here, I've removed the fire effect so we can animate them. I'll start by creating a draft layer to block in the base and the general conical shape of my flame. I'll use black this time since it's easier to see on this piece. Next, I set up the animation. In this case, the timeline will be 12 frames per second and 12 frames long. I'll then add in an animation folder and first cell. Set the whole animation folder as a draft layer. This time we'll use this first animation folder to draw a guide for our flame. Here's a great trick. Let's pretend there's a bubble rising out of the teddy bear's head. Draw a half sphere on the first cell. I'll then go to frame 7 and add a cell there. Then draw a small circle at the top representing the end of this bubble's path. At frame 3, I'll add a new cell to draw the bubble in between. To do this, turn on the onion skin feature by clicking here. I'll turn the art off for the moment so you can see it better. Enabling onion skin allows you to see the previous cell in blue and the next cell in green. I'll draw the middle bubble a little below the halfway point between the two, because I want its progress to speed up a bit as it rises. Using the onion skin feature, I'll continue to add in the rest of the bubbles for this first sequence. I'll repeat this pattern starting a new bubble on frames 5 and 9, with the first ending on frame 11 and the second looping back around to the beginning to end on frame 3. I'll also have the bubble travel a slightly curved path for each of these, for variation. Do you see the fire yet? If not, bear with me. No pun intended. It'll make more sense in a minute. I'll collapse this folder so it's out of the way. Next, I'll make a new animation folder and add the first cell. I'm also going to turn the art back on so the fire is visible in context. For the base color, I'll choose a saturated red-orange. I'll draw in the flame using the G-Pen subtool with a large brush size. On the first cell, form a cone around the base using the bubble as a guide. Fire tapers as it gets further away from its fuel source. Ignore the other bubble up top, I'll get back to that in a moment. Add a second cell. This time I'll still draw the base, but pinch it in a little before flaring out to follow the shape of my bubble guide. Same with the third cell. Pinch it in a little more and make the flame smaller to match the bubble. By the fourth cell, the pinch becomes pretty extreme. Then, on cell 5, the top flame breaks off, and I start over with a similar shape as the first frame. The little pinched off flame keeps shrinking for a couple frames before disappearing entirely as I repeat the cycle. Keep going until all the frames are filled, and don't forget to loop back and add the upper flames to the first few cells. When I play the animation, you can see the fire take shape. At this point, I like to spend a little time refining my flame shapes and adding a few smaller secondary flames using the same technique. For the brighter interior part of the flame, I'll choose a yellow color. This time, I prefer to use the soft airbrush tool. I'll also disable onion skin and turn off the guides. They're no longer needed. I'll go through and paint in an interior of a similar shape to the flame's outline on each layer. Then I'll choose a soft eraser and use it to fuzz out the bottom of the flame a little bit to blend it in. Finally, I'll add a new animation folder on top. Change the folder's blend mode to Add Glow, and with a soft airbrush, paint in a few additional glow effects and highlights. And there you have it, a poor innocent teddy bear on fire. For some movements, it's easier to let the computer handle the in-between frames. Keyframes allow you to animate motion, rotation, and even opacity easily. Keyframe animation can get very complex, so I plan to dedicate a whole video to it. Let me know if that's something you want to see. First off, you'll need a sparkle graphic. I've made a free download available from Clip Studio Assets, link in the description, or you can follow my own quick tutorial linked here, or use your own. Start with the sparkle graphic in its own square canvas with a black background. This'll make it easier to see. Create a timeline with a frame rate of 12. I want my animation to be 12 frames long, but I'll actually make the playback time 13. You'll see why in a moment. Keyframe animations do not require an animation folder and can be created on any layer or folder. Be sure the sparkle layer is active and the playhead is on the first frame. Then click Enable Keyframes on this layer. When you enable keyframes, you'll notice you can no longer edit the layer normally. It's now treated as an object. So to animate it, go to Operation and select the Object tool. First, I'll add rotation. With the playhead on the first frame, click here to add a keyframe. Move the playhead to the last frame. Then, use the Object tool to rotate the image 90 degrees. Hold down Shift to lock rotation to 45-degree increments. Two things to note. We made a change which caused Clip Studio Paint to automatically add a new keyframe. Also, a keyframe is always added before the playhead, which is why I made this timeline 13 frames long. When I hit play, the program goes between the rotation at the starting keyframe and the rotation at the end. Next, I'll change the size of my sparkle. Return to frame 1. Click and hold a corner anchor and, before moving, hold down the Alt key to resize around the central pivot point. When you scrub through the animation now, you'll see it gets bigger over time because the scale is already keyframed on the last frame. However, we want it to start and end at the same size. On the timeline, click this plus for more options, and then click this arrow to show each transform keyframe separately. Move the playhead to frame 13. Select the last keyframe beside Scale Ratio and delete it by clicking here. The size change is now gone. Click Add Keyframe to lock this as the new final size. Now go to frame 7 and make the sparkle larger. A keyframe is automatically added. Finally, go to frame 1 and turn the layer's opacity to 0. You'll notice a new opacity keyframe appear. Move to frame 7 and change it to 100%, then to frame 13 and change it back to 0. And voila! We have a sparkle! Now let me show you something really cool you can do with it. Delete the black background. Make sure you save the file in Clip Studio's .clip format. Here's one of my illustrations with a bunch of treasure. Let's make it sparkle. I'll create a timeline with a frame rate of 12 and a playback time of 24. Go to File, Import, and choose Create File Object. Navigate to wherever you saved your sparkle, select it, and choose Open. If you get this notification, just click OK. Ordinarily, you'd be able to see the file you just pulled in, but check this out. Since the file contains an animation, it automatically comes in with all its frames. Using the Object tool, move and resize the sparkle. You can even duplicate it and move it on the timeline, reusing the same animation multiple times with ease. To loop one of the sparkles, right-click on it and select Split Clip. Then move the first half to the end of your animation and the second half to the beginning. With a few more sparkles added, here's my final result. You'll find all the options for exporting your animation in the File menu under Export Animation. You can export as an image sequence, animated GIF, animated PNG, or a movie file in AVI or MP4 format. I go over exporting animations in more detail in my animation overview tutorial. Hopefully this tutorial got you jump-started on doing your own animated effects in Clip Studio Paint. Tag me at Ms.RedNebula on Twitter or Instagram and show me your animations. Animation is a big subject and there's lots more I can talk about. Subscribe for more, and let me know in the comments if there's anything in CSP you'd like to see me cover. For now, that's it. Hope to see you soon. Bye! A big thank you to all of my patrons, with a special shout out to Nova Tier patron Joe C. Phipps. Check out my Patreon if you'd like to help support future content like this.